Sometimes you face challenges, and this build turned out to be one of those with two disasters. I have been doing woodworking for 6 years, building a few things but never any furniture for sale. One of the main reasons is time. I work full time and cannot dedicate enough time to build something that needs to be delivered promptly. Therefore, I have decided that no customer is better than a dissatisfied customer. I have got this friend I have known for 15 years, and would you believe it? He accidentally turned out to be my boss too. He supports a non-profit organization dedicated to aiding infants with heart diseases. A couple of months ago, I met the individual who runs the non-profit organization. The purpose of our meeting was to discuss adding them to the YouTube fundraising program for my videos. Despite my YouTube videos not reaching a vast audience, I believed that even a modest contribution could make a difference in their noble cause. However, during our discussion, I proposed the idea of building a coffee table to be auctioned or sold. He liked the idea. From my end, I committed to bearing all the expenses for the build, and he committed to handling the marketing and selling of the coffee table after its completion. Our goal from the sale is to save at least a couple of infants. With the commitment to building the coffee table for the charitable cause, I found myself pondering over the kind of table I should create. Unlike professional builders who carefully design their projects using advanced software, my process was different. I chose not to depend on applications such as SketchUp. Instead, I mentally envisioned my ideas and designs, capturing them on paper. I knew my approach might come with its own set of challenges. I recognized that relying on a mental image and a rough sketch could lead to hiccups during the build. But given my limited time, this method felt right for me. Balancing a full time job with my passion for woodworking and charity work left me with little time for planning and detailed design work. This limitation explains why my YouTube channel did not boost a vast array of videos. For this project, I am making a coffee table with live edge wood and epoxy. I picked this design not just for looks but because more people appreciate it. Even if someone is not familiar with woodworking, they often like epoxy tables. In my experience, making an epoxy table felt a bit easier compared to a traditional one. However, I knew that not everyone in the woodworking community agreed on epoxy table projects. Some thought making epoxy tabletops was not true woodworking. I stayed neutral on this. To me, both epoxy and traditional wood tables had their own charm, and I liked both styles. With the tabletop design in place, I got into the building part. The plan was simple: cut a live edge slab in half and use epoxy to join the edges, making a cool river table look. The slab I picked was hackberry, and choosing the right one was important for the table's overall design. I made sure to avoid slabs with too much sapwood since it can shrink and crack easily over time. The slab I went with had a bit of sapwood, but I took it off carefully to make the table last longer. During the epoxy pour, I used an HDPE mold, which I had used for a couple of other table builds. However, this time it almost messed up the whole project because the overused mold has seen better days. It was worn out and posed unexpected challenges, putting the table's quality at risk. The mold was not flat and its corners were not square. Due to this, I ended up wasting some epoxy, and the slab was not even after it was cured. From this experience, I learned an important lesson. If I decide to use HDPE molds in the future, I'll limit each mold to just one project. Reusing them caused them to lose their shape and effectiveness, affecting the final product's precision. To fix the issue, I had to reduce the thickness by 0.25 inches to get rid of a void. I took the slab to a local sawmill to get it flattened, and the final thickness is now around 1.5 inches. For epoxy slabs, the real challenge and work starts after mold release and slab flattening. Most of the time, the slab will have some defects that may require refilling with epoxy, and this process may need to be repeated a few times. After filling all voids, there may be some tiny gaps or holes where you need to use CA glue and activate it to fill. After every fill, you need to sand, and sometimes these defects will reappear, requiring additional refilling. Depending on the time you invest, it might take hours or even days to get the slab perfect. Before finish sanding, it's always a good idea to eliminate sharp corners from the slab. Adding a round over is a smart way to achieve this. Depending on your preference, you can also sand the edges, but it might result in an inconsistent look. Sanding is often considered the most tedious part of the entire build for many of us, but it is also most crucial step. It smoothens surfaces, removes imperfections, and prepares the wood for finishing, ensuring a more polished and a refined end product. Choosing the type of finish is an individual choice. Most of the time I prefer a hard wax oil finish because it's very easy to apply with little chance of messing it up. For this slab, my choice of hot wax oil is Rubio Monocoat. I applied 2 coats in total, sanding with a maroon pad in between the coats. The second coat adds some sheen to the wood. With this, the tabletop is complete. Now let's move on building the base for this table. As I mentioned before, a part of woodworking community believes that building epoxy tabletops is not considered real woodworking. I remain unbiased on this topic because I appreciate both approaches. That being said, most of the time when I build epoxy tables, I strive to construct the base out of wood rather than purchasing a metal one. This way, woodworking is involved and I encounter and learn from my mistakes, therefore improving my skills. For this table base, I have opted for a geometric design and my choice of wood is hard maple. I bought these maple boards about a year ago and they have been in my shop since then. These boards vary in thickness and are not surfaced on all sides. To create the base, I need to bring them down to a uniform thickness of 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches. After milling the boards to their final dimensions, I use the festool domino to join them. Similar to epoxy tables, the festool domino is another topic that sparks some controversy within the woodworking community. Personally, I appreciate this tool due to my limited skill set in joinery. While I can do butt joints or pocket hole joinery, I am not as proficient in other methods. Although I want to enhance my joinery skills someday, for this project I opted for festool domino. Given that this build is for a noble cause, I prefer not to experiment with different joinery techniques and risk compromising the build of this table. Gluing up multiple pieces for the base is a challenging task, yet with careful planning, the process becomes more manageable. In crafting this base, I started the assembly by gluing together the stretcher pieces, and then I proceeded to apply glue to secure the dominoes to the legs. This strategic sequencing provides me with necessary time to ensure precision during the overall assembly. Once the dominoes are securely glued to the leg pieces, attention is given to cleaning up any excess glue. This step holds utmost importance as any residue of glue left unchecked can compromise the integrity of the joints. I let the glue dry overnight before removing all the clamps. This extended drying period ensures a strong and durable bond. Now the base is ready for finishing. I sanded it up to 180 grit, rounded off the sharp edges with a roundover bit and used a finish sander to smooth the routed areas. After completing all the prep work, I cleaned off any remaining dust with mineral spirits and applied 2 coats of Rubio Monocoat in charcoal. I sanded the base with a maroon pad before applying the second coat. With the base and tabletop ready, I now need to attach them. For this task, I opted for threaded inserts. To do this, I had to create holes in the base for the screws that go into the threaded inserts. Since I don't have a portable drill guide, I made a simple jig to ensure the holes are drilled straight. Attempting to drill without a guide or a jig may result in uneven or not straight holes. Everything was going well until the disaster struck. While using a specialty wrench to screw threaded inserts into the tabletop, the wrench broke, leaving the inserts stuck inside. Attempting to remove with a chisel revealed potential damage to the tabletop, prompting me to switch to a router. After carefully removing some surface material with the router, I successfully extracted the threaded insert using a combination of chisel and a mallet. Since this incident occurred on the epoxy portion of the tabletop, I refilled it with epoxy and waited for a few days to let it cure before attempting to screw the threaded inserts again. After 5 days, I cleaned the excess epoxy from the table, sanded it, and cleansed it with mineral spirits. You can see the hole I filled with epoxy, but I think it's not that bad. Additionally, this is the underside of the table, so it will not be visible to anyone viewing the table from the top. Finally, I finished it with Rubio Monocoat. I drilled the hole for the threaded insert in the same place. I was nervous, but the process went smoothly. When screwing in the threaded insert, I used a regular Allen wrench. No more specialty tools for me. I learned my lesson. My phone died when I was recording the process of attaching the base to the tabletop, but it was a simple process that you might have already seen multiple times. Finally, here are some photos of the table captured with my mediocre photography skills. I hope you enjoyed the video. If anyone of you interested in buying this table to support the cause, send me a message. I will leave my contact details in the video description. Thanks for watching and see you next time.